Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Demai, Perik Vav, Halacha Ches. God willing, we will be concluding the end of the 6th chapter today. We are learning today Daf Samach Dalet. We left off on Daf Samach Gimel Amud Beis in the beginning of the Gemara. Right, our Mishnah ruled the Chevra Let's Chazer that if you have a Am Haaretz who is Mishaleach, a Chaver Shliach, to go buy produce for the Am Haaretz, and the Shliach, the Chaver, is buying it from a Am Haaretz, even though the rule normally is a Chaver is not allowed to give produce that's in the status of the Mai prior to taking off whatever needs to be taken off. Over here, since the produce is not the Chaver's, he is only the channel from the Am Haaretz, the seller, to the owner of the money, an Am Haaretz. It's from one Am Haaretz to another Am Haaretz. The fact that it went through a Chaver is not Machayib the Chaver in anything. In addition, we already learned the Mishnah. The Mishnah is not only speaking about the case that I mentioned. Let's go more. Let's say the Chaver, the Shliach, when he's going to buy produce, he's not only buying produce for the Mishaleach, he's also buying produce for himself. Now, if he were to give the produce that he bought for himself to the Am Haaretz and exchange it by mistake, then there would be a problem. Might there not a problem? In other words, we say whatever he gave to the Am Haaretz always belonged to the Am Haaretz. Whatever he kept for himself was what belonged to him. Correct? However, the Mishnah says, if when he bought it, he bought some of it dafka for him. It wasn't stam. He bought something else for the Mishaleach. Same loaf of bread A, loaf of bread B. But there was a moment that he knew which loaf of bread is his. Then he just gives one of them to the Am Haaretz, then he has a problem. Because then he might be giving something that belongs to him. That is what we learned in the Mishnah. The Gemara is going to bring a Braisa in which we have a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. And we're going to see clearly that our Mishnah is following the Shita of Rabbi Yossi. And I just want you to know that this entire sugya of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, we also have in Bavli Eruvin Daf Lamed Zayin. And the way we will learn it in the Yerushalmi, according to the Gra, there'll be a machlokes between the Bavli and the Yerushalmi, how to understand the Braisa that we will begin today's class in, as we'll point out at least a bit. We're gonna have in the Gemara a big discussion regarding employers. All right, this is a sugya that we also have in Bavli, that many times, Simcha, a balabas, an employer, is chayiv to feed his workers. What happens if he tells his workers, go to the store, buy produce, and I'll pay the storekeeper? And the storekeeper might be selling them the mai. Is it the problem of the employer? The workers are amaratzim, the storekeeper is an amaretz. Again, do we say that it's going through the chaver? If it's going through the chaver and it belongs to the chaver, he can't just give it to them. Or do we not say that? We're going to learn a few ways of understanding why what I mentioned is actually taken not okay. Eda's explanation, why the balabas will not be able to do that. Rab Hila's explanation, and at the end we'll have another. It's all the same line of topics. When a person is obligated to give a portion of his wine for the king as tax, but instead of him giving his wine, he's asking a friend of his, and let's say in this case it's a goy who might have the ayin nesach. I'll give you money and you give the wine on my behalf. Maybe the guy is giving yayin nesach. Yayin nesach is something from which a yid is not allowed to have hana'ah. Now, really, when we're going to speak about a case of a guy doing something on behalf of a yid, most of us are familiar with the way Rashi understands one of the issues of Amiru La'akum, that yesh shlichus la'akum l'chumra, and Takada Alter Rebbe Paskins also Kishitas Rashi. We're going to have a similar topic over here. Not only even again Amiru La'akum, whether we say yesh shlichus la'akum l'chumra, and therefore the guy cannot give yayin nesach as tax because he's doing it on behalf of a yid. There's no shlichus by goyim, l'chumra there is, and that will be more or less the outline topics of today's daf. Again, let's go to daf Samach Gimel Amud Beis. Right, 3 lines before the bottom of the Amid, beginning with the Gemara. Says the Gemara, our Mishnah, the way we learned our Mishnah, that's speaking about a case where you have, again, a Am Ha'aretz, who is the Mishaleach, and he asked of a Chavid, who is now the Shliach, please buy for me produce from a vendor in Am Ha'aretz. Please buy for me bread from a vendor who is an Am Ha'aretz. Even when the Chavid, the Shliach, is buying 2 loaves of bread, one for him, one for the Mishaleach, or 2 bundles of vegetables, as long as when the purchase is done, it's done stam. Stam means that the vendor, I'm repeating it the way we'll learn it. We're going to learn it inside again. We'll see the Babli Yerushalmi's pshat over here. But let's go to the way we learned the Mishnah. Even though the vendor, when the vendor didn't tell him which one is for which, when the Chavir, the one who's the Shliach and also buying for himself, stam, he didn't designate which bread is his, which bread is going to go to the Mishaleach. Stam, one mine, one his. Our Mishnah says the Chaver does not need to be concerned that the bread that he's passing over to the Mishaleach is a bread of the Mai, because it's not his that he's giving. He's just the Shliach of the Am Ha'aretz, even though he's buying 2, one for him, one for the other. So says our Gemara, our Mishnah can only follow the sheet of Rabbi Yossi. Tani, we learned in a Brayso, Halakeyach Stam, that's the word Stam. And look inside the Rashirilio, guys in the left column in the middle, Halakeyach Stam, Sholei Perush HaChavir. That's the way we learn it. That when the Shliach, who's the Chaver, when he bought it from the vendor, who's an Am Ha'aretz, he didn't say, "Ooh, this one is mine and that one will belong leChaver." He never said that. It was bought Stam. So then the din is Einot Tzarech La'aser. The one that he passes on to the Mishaleach does not have to be a tithe. Mamish, the way it says in the Mishnah, Divided Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, yes, Tzarech La'aser. Now, I want to go back just for a moment. If you want to go back in the Rashirilio, in the right column, 6 lines before the bottom, in middle of Divrei Amatzchal Am Ha'aretz. So he brings how this sugya is learned in Bavli Eruv and Daflamet Zayin Amud Beis. Umefarish b'Gemarim, that the Tana de Masnis and Rabbi Yossi Hiu umefarish v'Peder Kol Ma'arvin. The pliga Rabbanan Alei, the Rabbanan is Rabbi Yehuda. The Rabbi Yossi ba'Amri Tzarech La'aser, and that's really says the Rashirilio quoting from Bavli Eruvin. Look inside. Just go 3 lines before the bottom. That Rabbi Yossi holds Yesh Bereda. Yesh Bereda means that the one that he ends up giving to the Mishaleach was never his. That was the one that he bought. That's why Rabbi Yossi holds its mutter. Rabbi Yehuda holds Ein Bereda. Ein Bereda means maybe, even though it was tam, that's the way we learned in the Bible, even though it was tam, maybe he had in mind that the bread on the right will be his, the shliachs, the chavers. And if he ends up giving that one to the Mishaleach, he's giving to the Mishaleach something that for a moment belonged to him, that's not yet tied. He's not allowed to do that. In other words, in the Bavli, the underlying rationale between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda is Yesh Breda or Ein Breda, and this Bechlal will not be at all the way we learn it over here. And now the Gemara here in the Yerushalmi is going to limit the machloikes between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda. Man nan kaimin. Right? Like, what are we talking about? If the Mishaleach told him, say ulakachli, go and buy produce for me, since he told him those words, shluchayhu, and since he's clearly a shliach in the act of the purchase, that means minimally shlichus, yad shliach ki yad Mishaleach. So the chaver b'chlal didn't buy it. So why would Rabbi Yehuda have an issue by saying that tzarech la'as? That doesn't work. On the other hand, if the Mishaleach Tama'aretz, right, said, not buy for me the Mishaleach. If he told him, do me a favor, you go buy for yourself bread and then sell it to me, then give it to me. If he told him, say, ulakach lecha, in other words, acquire for yourself and then transfer the ownership to me, in such a case, why would Rabbi Yossi say it would be allowed? If the Shaliach, the Chaver, bought it for himself, shaloyim, and once it's his, a chaver is not allowed to transfer produce that's not tithe, even if the issue is only demai. So what would be the rationale of Rabbi Yossi? So daf samach dalad on the top, elo ki nan kaimin. They can bust that nindo bistam Now, how are we going to learn Bistam? Bistam, this is important. So look inside Dafka. I'm going to go with the Gra. Look inside all the way in the bottom, and the Ksav Yad Aleph. Umasik, right? You see in the bottom, the item Bistam, Pedish. This is the Stam, the way we'll learn. It's the Mishaleach. Amalei Stam. He didn't say the words Kach Li. He did not say the words Kach Lecha. He told him, please buy. And when the Chaver bought also Stam, and what's the issue? Second line in the Gra, Upalik im Neschavin Hamoiched Liskois Lalekeach Kahainu Mashliach Oi Lebal Hamois. In other words, the question is not what the Mishaleach had in mind. It's not even what the Shliach had in mind. The way the Gra understands the Yerushalmi's Pshat and the Machlokes, it's that in the case where not the Mishaleach nor the Shliach had any specific Havana, who has all the power? What does the seller have in mind? And his intent will determine whether he's selling it straight to the Mishaleach or to the Shliach. Now let's read it inside. Rabbi Yehuda Omer in the Yerushalmi Anahei. Rabbi Yehuda Omer lo nischaven hamoicher lezakois elo lalikeach. That's Rabbi Yehuda, which is quite amazing. Lekeach means, guys, who's the lekeach? Simcha, the shliach, the guy that's actually buying it. Even though he knows he's a shliach, even though he knows the Baal Hamois is someone else, doesn't matter. That's the intent of the moich and Gavaldik. That's it. So it becomes his. Rabbi Yossi Omer, no, that lo nischaven hamoicher lezakis elo lebal hamois. Right, Gavaldik.
Why would the seller know?
The seller knows. Seller knows. Or Simcha, that whenever a person walks into a store, a seller wants residual business. What does a seller want? The seller wants that it shouldn't only be a one-time sale. The guy should come back. So who is he trying to please? Like who? His mind is on the guy who has the dollar. Who cares about the shliach? That's the shita of Rabbi Yossi. Now, there's a big nafkamina. No, it's not about breder or ein breder. It's that when the mishaleach and the shliach had no specific kavana, then there's a machlokes tanoim to whom is the moicher selling it to, and that will determine. And therefore, big says the Gemara lefikach im nosan achas yisera. It's not that uncommon that when a person does a sale, they throw in a freebie. You're selling perfume, you throw in a couple of little peklach of other stinkach, so the guy should come back and buy that. Who are you giving it to? Now you're big enough kamina. According to Rabbi Yehuda says that the moicher's intent is to the man or woman standing in front of him, to the guy that's doing the buying. So if they add something, they gifted it to the lekeach. Now, Rabbi Yossi, what would you think Rabbi Yossi would say? Rabbi Yossi now should say it belongs to the Baal Hamois. The problem is that the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says Rabbi Yossi shal shnei. I want to make something clear. Let's go back. I know that we are learning, and that's the way we're learning, that our Mishnah's case is where the Chaver bought both for him, one for him and one for someone else. That's not what the Gemara is referring to over here. That's not what, because if that would be the case, then it's self-understood why Rabbi Yossi says shal shnei. That's not what we are referring to over here. We are referring to over here to the svara of the machlokes, and the svara of the machlokes is explained where the shliach is only buying for the mishaleach, and to whom does the moicher have kavanah to sell to? Machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, and therefore Rabbi Yossi should have said that that's the whole word. It shall bal hamois, and that's the Gemara's kasha. So the Gemara mechalfa shitase that Rabbi Yossi, are you right away changing the sheet of Rabbi Yossi? Kaman ho emer over there means right over here. You just explained that lo nischaven hamoicher lizakois elo lebal hamois. However, v'cha hu emer hachin, and now you're saying both. That's the hachin. That's the way the Maraful does, asking the question, explaining the Gemara. Gavaldik answers the Gemara. Yeah, b'diuk, exactly the way we said it. When it comes to the question of the item itself, not the question of added freebie. There, the machlokes take, it's either to one or to the other. It's either the kavan of the meichus to the person in front of him, or it's to the Bal Hamois. Whenever he adds something, even Rabbi Yossi that says that the item itself is to the Bal Hamois only, and maybe even if he doesn't know that it's another person, it doesn't matter. He's selling it to the Bal Hamois. When it comes to a freebie, why do they do a freebie? They do a freebie to be noisechein in the eyes of the customer. The customer should return. Rabbi Yossi will hold that a freebie is for both. You know, sometimes when you want to get to a gevir, you have to be smart and compassionate and kind to the secretary, to the driver. You're after the money of the Bal Hamois. Yeah, but you want to make sure that everyone puts in a good word for you. He wants, even though he's selling it to the Bal Hamois, he wants for the shliach to say, "Ooh, that's such a nice guy. You should go back over there." So he gives it to everyone. Khan al yidei mo'osav shozeh. That's the Gemara's answer. Al yidei raglav shozeh, and therefore shneim cholkin. It's the item itself. It's only to the guy who gave the money. The primary transaction, the added transaction, according to Rabbi Yossi, is to everyone. Okay, says the Gemara, and let's go back. The case of our Mishnah is even the Reisha, when it's stam, that the chaver bought two breads, two bundles, one for him and one for the owner. Still, the Mishnah says that since it's stam, compounded with the fact that whichever one will end up biyad the mishaleach was always meant for the mishaleach, so the chaver has no obligation to tithe it. Not so simple. We're going to give a qualification. Tani, we learned in the Brayz that Rab Shimon and Gamliel Loimer on this case, that if when the mishaleach gave the shliach the money, let's say the item, the loaf of bread, cost $10. Right? It used to cost 25 cents. Now it costs $10. And listen to this. The Mishaleach takes that $10 for himself and he uses the Shliach, the Shliach pockets that $10 and he gives his own $10. He doesn't give the same bill, the same coin. You would say, Lamay Nafkamina, huge, yes. That the moment in Hechla Vesama, you know what we say? If he didn't use that coin, he used his own coin, then the sale belongs to the chaver. And then tzarich la'aser, while we look inside the Mara folder, around the middle of the Amid, 12 lines from the bottom, he just exchanged it. No, push it. Since he exchanged it, that coin itself, the shliach, the chaver, kana'oi. He owns it now. And once that happens, how great is that? It's a big chiddush that. Based on that chiddush, says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yossi, that Hada Amra, this is the Amoira. Hada Amra, if a person asks another to be a shomer, a custodian, so what's the law by custodianship? That if you're shaleach yad, that means if the item that I'm supposed to watch, if I use it for myself, if I lift it up even only with intent to use it for myself, I'm going to be chayv even in minus. It's normally one might have thought money is different. Money is different. I'm sending you to buy something. Who cares with whose $10 bill? Huh? More than that, he's saying very good. That so you might have thought there's no shlichus yad by the money. In this case, where he's asking him to do something, don't forget, he's not really a custodian over here. By a custodianship, there's no chiddush. No, there still is a chiddush. But here we say, by a custodianship, and without that intent, you asking me to watch $1,000, whatever, I already have my own $1,000 already locked in the safe. So I say, okay, that's yours. Right away, if it gets lost, in a case where the level of custodianship, right, Geneva va'aveda, right, if it's a shomer sachar, it will be shomer chinam, shomer sachar, anyways, chayiv. Since yechlifu, chay ba'achri yusan. Look inside the marafulda. The yechlifu of the chay ba'achri is shekiva shechlifu kanaan chay ba'achri yusan. That's good. Okay, now
cannot claim that the mind is lost in
Okay. Says the Gemara. Okay, going back to the Mishnah, that in the second case of the Mishnah, right by the two dots, that if now, in other words, everything that we go after the kavanah of the moicher is only because the mishaleach and the shliach had no kavanah, was tam. But the moment they had kavanah, let's go in the case of the Mishnah, that the shliach, the chaver, when he bought it, this is mine and that's, I'm going to pass over. And then he doesn't know which one is which. Now he's chayv. Bechlifan is chayv. Okay. What does that mean? I'll go more than that. What happens if not the hechlifan simcha? Not the hechlifan. Then again, he won't be chayv. That's what the Mishnah is inferring. Says our Gemara, even where there's no hechlifan, there will be times where he will also be chayv. What will that be that case? Shmuel Amar, that b'mechalik b'yadav, there's two ways that the shliach will pass on the loaf of bread to the mishaleach. One is he buys it, he puts it on his table, and the mishaleach takes. That's less problematic. The shliach is not giving it to him. But what happens, says Shmuel, if the shliach, who's the chaver, actually takes it himself, he's not b'mechalek b'yadav. All right? No, it's not that he allows the Am Ha'aretz to take it. That if he actually gives it, look inside the Marafulda, the Mechalik b'yadav amis nisim koiv v'komash malan, she'afilu lo yinasar b'agudah shel chaver amaris yach. Elo shechilkon b'yadav. The shliach actually gave it. But now, guys, remember the next step in the Gemara on Amud Beis. If he gave it, the problem that we are speaking about is only if he gave first to the Mishalech. That's what Shmuel is talking about. If he took his and then he gave it, doesn't matter. We'll see that in a moment. But if he gave it, that's the second line in the Maraful under the Gemara. But the Natal Chalkoy Lebasoy, it's not only about him giving it, it's that he gave it first. His chelik is being left ukedamasik, as we'll see in the next statement, in the next Amoida. So then we say, even though it wasn't intermingled, it's as if he sold it. Says clear spells it out. But even if he's giving it, if he took his first, the one that he left, it's as if he took it. What that's the leftover one. There's only one. He's not determining it. It was already determined before. And then so says the Rash. But Shmuel didn't emphasize that. Shmuel only spoke about the mechalik b'yadav. Mechalik b'yadav means that if the chaver gives it the yadayim, then he has to take off tithes, even if it wasn't intermingled. Look inside Daf Samach Daled Amud Beis. We're putting both together. Amar Rabbi Lazar is not arguing with Shmuel. Actually, we read the Maraful that's together. And even the mechalik b'yadav, when is there a problem? If it wasn't intermingled, only if the shliach kept his for the end. So if I have two simcha, doesn't matter that when I bought it, I knew I'm buying the one on the right. I knew that. And it never got intermingled. When I give it, it looks like it's a marasayin issue. I always bought it for him. It never got mixed. If I buy something and I bought two, people don't know which one is which. And I give one, looks like I'm selling it to the Amad. And Amar Rabbi Yoina, that Rabbi Lazar and Shmuel go together, like we just said. It's not a machloikis, it's together. In other words, sarcha l'dain v'tzarcha l'dain. For you to come to the right understanding of the halacha, we put together Sai, Shmuel, this one and that one, Shmuel and Rabbi Lazar. That what? Chilik biyadav. If the shliach actually gave it, but the natal chalkei batchila, but he took his portion first, so there's only one left. He was just being more menschlich. He handed it over. Then again, this is all where it never got intermingled. Okay. If he didn't actually give it, so the shliach did his job. He came back with 2 bundles of vegetables. He put it down on wherever, and he tells the mishaleach, good, take yours. Then weiter. Again, Gewaldig. Even though the Am Haaretz took the Am Haaretz's portion first. Ella al Shaloi. However, that's the chiddush of the Gemara. Because in the Mishnah only spoke about the chiyuv la'ased if it got intermingled. The Gemara added scenarios where you will have to be ma'ased even if it doesn't intermingle. And let's use the concept of maras ayin, because it looks like if there is even an appearance that the chaver is selling the chaver's own produce to the Am Haaretz, how can he do that if it's the mai? Okay. Now let's go to the next case. The person has workers. And we're speaking even in the case, Chevra, we learned this together in Bavli, where the balabas, the employer, let's say the word balabas, is chayiv to feed the workers. Actually, in the times of Chazal, there were scenarios where the whole obligation of payment was to give food. Remember that? We had that in Masech the Brachas, when they gave Birchas Hamazon, etc. Okay. So here, the employer, the balabas, has to feed them. He himself doesn't have food. Question is, what he wants to do is he wants to give money to his workers. He tells his workers, go to the store and buy food. But the workers who are maratzim, might go to a store where the storekeeper is reichet and ha'aretz, and the food that they're buying might be demai. The balabas is a chaver. That's the case. All right? The balabas is a chaver, the workers and ha'aretz, or another issue, that they might buy something that's mamish not kosher. Mamish not kosher. They might buy yayin nesach. Okay, let me go further. In other words, if the workers are goyim, the workers can buy yayin nesach. The problem is that if we see the storekeeper as the shliach of the chaver, then he's benefiting from the yayin nesach. In other words, he has to give the workers food. In other words, our issue is either the issue of the mai, the issue can also be the issue of the yayin nesach, or of real treif. In other words, the goyim, the workers, they can eat treif. But and by the way, I can have hana from treif. I want to go yayin nesach. Certain types of non-kosher foods, a yid cannot even have hana from. I'm chayiv to pay my workers. So will there be a scenario where we're going to say you can't do that, even though the goyim can drink yayin nesach, but I'm the balabas, I'm benefiting from yayin nesach. So it says the Gemara. We learned in the Brayz. Omer hu adam lepoyel. A employer, a balabas, a yid, a chaver, is allowed to tell his workers whether the case is the workers are amaratzim and they might be buying the mine, whether the case is the workers are goyim and they might be buying yayin. Same thing. You are allowed to tell the workers, hey, look, dinner zeh, here's money. How much does lunch cost? $20. By the goyim, by the yid, it cost $150. See, that's the thing. Hey, look, dinner zeh and echol boy. Hey, look, dinner zeh shesei boy. That's not a problem. That's gaval. And what's it? It means if I'm chayiv, that's the case of the yayin nesach. If I'm chayiv to give my workers food, I cannot benefit if the food l'chayre is going to be yayin nesach. I don't have such a problem. Or what were to happen if there's an issue that they might be buying produce of shvi? So now we're already speaking about people that are yidden, but they might eat something that may not be eaten. Or might be amaratzim, the workers. The vendor might be an amaretz, and then it's not fully tight. Or if it's a goy, and why is that? That's the key. The key is because since the balabas is not paying for the food himself, not a problem. He's giving money to the worker. He fulfilled his obligation. He's chayv to give them lunch. They agreed that lunch is $15, $20. He paid them lunch. What they do with the money is completely on them. I'm not, there's lefini shuras hadin. If you're a yid and you have workers, you should inspire them to eat kosher. But we're speaking about the ikar hadin. All these dinim don't apply over here. Okay, that's really great. Oh, aber here we go. Here it gets exciting. Avo, what happens if the employer is not yoytze his chiyuv by giving money to the worker, which is the best case? It's not what happened. What I'm saying right now, I know it's very common in many businesses. The workers have an account and they go to the store. You pick up lunch and I, the balabas, I'll pay the chenveni, like the shlichos over there in Sydney. Now you got a problem. Potential. If the balabas tells his workers, say, kikar, you buy whatever you want to buy. You go buy food. And va'ani noisin, very important to get. Va'ani noisin damim, I'm going to pay the tab. I'm going to pay the storekeeper. Or say, whether he's chayv to give them food, whether he's chayv to give them wine, and va'ani noisin damim. Now we got a problem. Whether the issue is that if he's having hana'ah from food from which you can't have hana'ah, whether the issue is if they're yidin that shvis, whether the issue is ma'aser is the mai, whether the issue is yayin nesach if they're goyim. We got a problem over there. What's the problem? Look inside. Let's read inside. We're going to go with the marafulda. I mean, every word is gold over here. So the marafulda is about 8 lines from the top. That's a problem. Why? Now, really, guys, machlokes big machlokes here. Rab Zeira in the Yerushalmi, Rab Zeira on it's with the ayin, and Rab Hila as to why. Big difference. But let's first read the manaful. Havalei ki'ilu habalabos k'na b'ma oisav. We view it since he's giving the money, even though he's giving the money later. The balabos is paying a day later, a month later. Doesn't matter. It's as if the balabas bought the food, and then he gave them that food. The nice from lapoil. The alkein habalabayis koyin shvis uparei behem chayva. Chen yayin es a koyin machil lapal. The chen dav shenem oser. The chalabrayis mefresh bebabli. The reish asay asay as apol dav samakim. Okay. Now keep your finger in the maraful. It's us. So again, if I give the worker the money, the fact that the worker is going to use money for something that he shouldn't have, let's say an ama'aretz buying the mic, that's not on me. But the moment I'm paying the storekeeper, even though I'm paying the storekeeper later, there's a problem. Well, there's 2 very different ways of understanding the problem. Mamish. Exactly what's the problem? Because in the case of the balabas paying the tab, we view the storekeeper as a shliach, which means what really happened was the balabayis is feeding the workers direct, just like we learned in our sugi in the Mishnah. So the shliach is out of the equation. He's just a channel, not a mitzvah. There's no buffer there. Look inside. Keep your finger inside the Gemara by Rabbi. Look inside the more or less the middle in the maraful. That's around 15 or 16 lines from the top. Amar Rab Zeira, asay for the b'raisa koyin. Umefarish shachen v'ni nase shluchay shabalabayis lezakois b'shviloi lepoyalam hana levar masur. Okay, that's easy, and you would say, good. Rabbi Hila versteht ein ganzen anders. Keep your finger inside the maraful, the middle of the maraful. Amar Rabbi Hila b'chalnat. Let me go what he doesn't hold. That Rabbi Hila holds that the storekeeper is not a shliach of the balabayis. The worker who goes to pick up the food is a shliach of the balabayis who's chayv to give them food. I'm a balabas and I have to feed you a worker. I don't have food. When I tell you go pick up food in the store, the act of picking up food, of course they're picking it up for them to eat. It's a two-step process. The worker is a shliach of the balabas, and then his hand, which is the hand of the balabas, puts it in his other hand, which is him. Then it's as if the balabas gave it to him. But the first step is not that the chenvini is out of the equation; it's balabas worker. No, the worker is a shliach of the chenvini to buy it for the balabas. Sure, because you got it? Okay. Poyel zochel balabayis mishal chenvini. The poyel is the shliach. Who's the mishaleach? The chenvini. Who acquires it? The balabas. In other words, first it belongs to the balabas, and now Look inside the Marafulda. But Abhila Amar, Shapoyel Atzmai, Zachal Balabayis. And there's Takarul, Yad Poyel, Yad Balabayis done. And therefore, V'Zacha Balabayis Pahani Devarim Asurim. First, it belongs to the Balabas. There are two actions that happen. There are two transactions that happen in the one transaction. And then, because the Eloi came, what he argues with Rabbi Zajac. Why? Why would he make it complicated? Because you know what the bottom line is? He's chayv to give them. I know he's chayv to give them food, but he's not giving them food. He's giving them money. So why would it be different than a donation? Why would we have to view, according to Rabbi Zajac, that the chenveni is a shluach of the balabayis? The balabayis doesn't want to make him into a shliach. Why? The balabayis would not want to make him into a shliach. The balabayis just wants to pay the storekeeper. What's really happening is that if I hire you, Simcha, I have to give you food. If I'm not giving you food, if I'm telling you to pick up the food, you know what's really happening? You're choosing to do me a favor, to do my work for me. I should have picked up the food. When you pick up the food, you're picking it up for me. And then you're giving it to yourself. Gewaltig. The Mainaf Kemina, huge. Mainaf Kemina Benayim. Says the Gemara, I'll tell you. If there is one actor here that's halachically unfit to be a shliach. So now we have to know who's a shliach of whom, to know who's the person that if that person is not qualified, the whole thing will not be problematic. Don't forget, the Isur comes because of shlichus. This is beautiful. What happens if the storekeeper is a chedesh? A chedesh means normally a deaf mute. A deaf mute, certainly the times of Chazal, was considered mentally incompetent, similar to a shaita, similar to a cotton that doesn't have enough das. And a chedesh, bottom line is, cannot be a shliach. Now, according to Rabbi Zajac, it's going to be gavaldik. Even though the Braisa says in the Sefer that when the employer tells the workers, you buy in that store and I'll pay the tab. Braisa says he's not allowed to do that. If the storekeeper is deaf mute, he is allowed to do that. There is no chashash. Why? Because what is the issue? The issue is that since we view the storekeeper as the shliach of the balabas, so if the storekeeper gives them yayin nesach to the goyish worker, it's as if the balabas is giving them yayin nesach. Bamed varam amurim, if he's a shliach. If the storekeeper is a chedesh, then he is allowed to do what we just said in the sefer, even though he's not giving them money directly. Because she'ein shlichus l'chedesh. One second. Al dati der abhila, but let's say in case the chenveni is a chedesh. What we are saying is that when they buy the food, the poyel buys the food for the balabas. The balabas acquires it. How does he acquire? Now you're going to say a chedesh cannot be a mishaleach. No. That's why the maraful that yat poyel kiyat balabayis. In other words, if I buy something from a chedesh, it's mine. Forget about shlichus. If the worker is an extension of the hand of the balabas, who cares that he's buying it from the chedesh? The worker bought yayin nesach. Now, when he's keeping it for himself, that's the second act or transact where it's going from the balabas directly to the worker. The balabas is not a chedesh. The worker is not a chedesh. You got a problem. Okay. Yes.
So also Maisa, Tzemach Tzedek, the dike for Maisa Unaguna, or a supposed shleita.
For money, the change.
And asking Baal as a shleita, the din is he cannot be misasik with Mois. He cannot say that he's a shleita. He was matir.
Yeah.
If this shleita is misasik with Mois, doesn't have the definition of a shleita.
One thing, the kids, I know, not everyone got the whole thing. I want to say one thing is very important. That the definition of a shleita is not consistent in halach, like many other dinim. And what is considered a shleita to qualify to give a get or not to qualify to give a get is not necessarily going to be the same definition of a shleita, whether he qualifies let's say, to be a shliach or not. So don't be madam and milsa l'mils. Now, final case. Tani we learned in a brayz. We are going to learn pshat over here. We're speaking about a person who manufactures wine, and the chiyuv of taxes. How do I know no one hears it over here in America? They'll make a new tax, side of all of the other taxes. Someone told me that from every dollar you end up keeping up as 8 pennies. Everything else went to tax. They were one way or the other. So that the wine, you have to give wine as tax. Means the item itself that you're making, you have to give to the government a certain percent. So let's say there's a yid and a goy. We're going to clear. There's so many different ways of learning it. Let's go in a case where a man tells his chaver, and even the word chaver is referring to a non-Jew. Instead of me giving mine wine, I need all my wine. Someone bought all my wine. I have to give tax. You have extra wine. Heilach Mosayim dinner. The amount of tax, and they're not negotiating this. They know that whatever needed to be given has the value of 200 dinner. So a man is not allowed to tell us chaver, I'll give you the money. Heilach Mosayim dinner. Turning to daf samachei, and these are the key words. Ushkoil al yodi lo'oitze. The word shkoil means contribute. Contribute on my behalf to the oitze HaMelech for the taxes. That's something that you're not allowed to do. Look inside the maraful on the top. Why not? Bishum deshavye legoy shliach. So it's gewaldik, right? So most of us already heard that Shitas Rashi, because if you learn the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch by Amira La'akum, that even though clearly, biblically, ein shlichus la'akum, right? Came to Rimo Gamatim. That's the whole sugya that we have. The whole source. One of the main sources of shlichus is from Truma and Ma'atim b'nei bris, Afshluchachem b'nei bris. Nevertheless, these are the words by Amira La'akum, right? Yesh shlichus la'akum l'chumra, and therefore not bein hashmashus, but on Shabbos proper. Other than the few exceptions, I can't tell a guy do X, Y, and Z chilul Shabbos for me because it's keilu. That's the biggest, highest. Most chamerdik way of understanding the Isur of Amira La'akum Shlichus. Yesh. Another application. In other words, you would argue, Ein Shlichus La'akum. Yeah, these are the words. Look inside the Manafulda. Mishum the Shav Goy Shliach, and V'chol Ma the Yov Goy. Whenever the guy is going to end up giving to the oitzer, to the taxes, is Keilu Yov Le HaYisrael, and there's a possibility, not a possibility, the guy will give him a Yayin Esach. So I'm using Yayin. I can't pay my tax with Yayin Esach. However, when is that a problem, David? Now, there's so many ways of learning the Gemara. If I said the word shkoil, contribute, but if I said the words, now either the girsa is parsheni, look inside the Gra, his girsa is patrani, pater me, exempt me from my obligation, I'm allowed to do it. I want you to know, like I said, this in Avodah Zarah, Rashi says that patrani, exempt me, a person who's chayv to give wine can tell the government, I'm chayv to give wine, but I want to exempt myself by giving you its value. The government allows that. So since when he told the guy, he didn't say, contribute for me. And the dinner, the ikra din was you give the wine. Whatever you're making, you give part of it to the government. He said, exempt me, since the guy could have given money, even if the guy later chooses to give wine, then that's not what he asked for. It's very much, let's go back to Hilchos Shabbos. If I tell a guy to do something for me, and the guy could have done it without being Mechal Shabbos. If the guy chooses to do it bo'ofen that he's Mechal Shabbos, it's not a problem. Sometimes in the house, if it makes a lot of noise, like clean up, right? So there's so many dinim in cleaning up, not to do this, not to do that. The guy can do the cleaning up in the house bo'ofen that he's Mechal Shabbos. I'm not talking about opening up a vacuum cleaner. There's noise, there's a coil. If taking out that issue, same idea. That you could have done it bo'ofen hamuter, even if the guy does it bo'ofen ha'isur, it's not a problem. And similarly, the it's late. Heilach Masayim Zuz. Ushkoil al yadi li umanois. So umanois is there used to be unions. Another type of tax. That's clearly what the Marafulda writes. Okay, so same idea. So whether it was giving it to the king, whether you have to give it to the union, and again, you're asking a person, and I have to give to the union some of my wine. The person whom I asked the word chaver over here, That's what the Marafulda concludes, that the word chaved, it can refer to a goy. And he quotes another location. So if I tell him shkoil means contribute, and the ikir, what they wanted was the item itself. I can't tell it to a goy. He might give them by yain. The goy's yain will be yain. But if I tell him elam keinu oimer pashreni, or according to the God, patreni patrmi, examine, do whatever you need to do to get me off the hook. Since there is a way of getting me off the hook by exchanging the item with money, then it's going to be allowed. And on that we say, Havdan and Allah Hamakabel Sada, we will come back to you. And a big mazel tov, and God willing, tomorrow we are starting with the final Perek of the Mai.